We are indeed talking lithium. So Joe's in charge. So I need Ron Mitchell from Global Lithium. I need Stephen Miller from Abyssinian Metals. I need Daniel Jimez Schuster from Gallon Lithium. Hello, Daniel. And last but not least, from Geo40, would you please put your hands together and welcome John Worth.
Gentlemen, my presupposition is that the world is in a short lithium market. One of the greatest potentials for increasing the supply of lithium is direct lithium extraction, which if you were in here this morning when I was talking, I made the case that right now it's just the promise of DLE because there is no commercial DLE as pure DLE. What Livent does is at best a hybrid. So, John, you're talking about doing DLE with very low ppm lithium, as I understand it. Could you just tell us a little bit about what you're doing and when you think DLE will be ready for prime time?
Thanks, Joe. Look, we're an unusual business because we developed a tech to get silica out of geothermal fluid. And in silica, we're quite a mature business. We've got a couple of big plants. We process about 7 million litres of brine a day. We do 4,000 tonnes per annum. So we're following that same journey in DLE. And because we started in the geothermal world, we pull lithium out of brine in New Zealand, non-commercially, at 7 ppm, right? So we think we lead the low-grade space, and our number is 50, right? So if you've got a lithium resource at 50 ppm, we think we can make that work commercially. And what that does is that opens up Canada particularly and the US. And what's compelling about Canada and the US is that there are projects with brine flowing. There's guys up there with 500,000 litres sitting in a warehouse. They've got flowing wells. They're ready for DLE today, right? And so what you do with DLE is you take the resource side out of it. So you're not constrained by trying to get your licenses in place and all of the build issues there. You've just got to deliver your DLE technology. So we'll do the same as what we've done in silica. We'll scale up. We'll be in the field this summer in the US with a field rig. We're shipping brine lots into New Zealand. And what we're navigating towards is exactly what we've done in silica, sort of 5,000 to 10,000 tonne LCE plant. And if you take, into kind of 2025, if you take Joe's growth number, which I agree with, sort of 200,000 tonne incremental annual demand, DLE can play a role here, right? But the challenge is to find these projects that are attractive, where the infrastructure is in place, and you've got tech that works on those grades. And we think that's a super compelling story. And we've heard it all day, right? DLE is a contest of infrastructure. It's not just grade, it's power, water, fabrication, and so on.
But let's talk business plan. How long? I mean, you have a pilot. You have a couple of pilots,
yeah.
All right?
Yeah.
So
2 pilots.
Normally, the protocol would be pilot, demo, commercial.
Yep.
When do you expect your best case guess, not best case scenario, best case guess, on when is the first 20,000 tons from pure DLE? And again, I don't count most of what happens in Shanghai. There is direct lithium extraction in Shanghai. If there's anybody here from Sunresin, we can debate that later. But most of that's using ponds. They claim they'll be doing 50 ppm projects without ponds, but I'll believe it when I see it.
Single site, 20,000 tons LCE.
It doesn't have to be single size. You did 4,000 or 5,000 ton plants. When will you get to 20,000 tons?
Yeah, so first 5,000 ton module, our goal is 25, late 25, and then a multiple of that in 26. So that's kind of our view of how you get a DLE tech to market and doing exactly as Joe says, right? Nobody goes from the lab to a big plant, right? So we will be in the field this summer with another pilot, demo next year, and then we get into bigger plants.
When you look at you referenced North America, you've got plenty of brine around, but when you start talking about old oil wells, you start talking about what's in the solution. Tell us a little bit about
So we've done a whole lot of work in the US, from sort of Arkansas down through Texas, up further north and across the border. And I think there's a couple of things going on here, right? So hydrocarbon separation is a thing. You'll have to do it. You have to get comfortable with that if you've got oily brines. I think the switch here is that not all these brines are oily, right? So we've got guys perforating casings in a different part of the strata and actually bringing up brines which are really clean. So don't assume that North America means dirty, oily brines. Right? There's actually
I would never assume that.
But there's some very nice clean brines there, and I think they're of course more attractive.
I always talk about DLE. From my perspective, it's the big concern I have when we talk about DLE is that if you get 20,000 tons, you do 5 modules, it works. I always say this is not a drop-in technology because it's bespoke. It has to be customized for the individual brines. Do you agree with that? And if you agree with that, how do you see the tweaking going on? Once there's a real DLE commercial success, what's the tweaking take to take it to other sorts of brines?
Look, we think there are really 7 brine types if you try and characterize the chemistry, right? And they're not hard to work out, but Salton Sea is a kind of a special category on its own. We don't target it. It's pH 2. I built a geothermal power station there years ago. It's tough going, so that's not us. We've worked across the other 6 brine types, so you can imagine they're classic easy salar brines, they're high magnesium lithium ratio brines, they're high calcium brines. Oil field's got a few subcategories. We've worked successfully across those 6, and so if you're working on oil field brines, there's pre-treatment, right? If your pre-treatment is good, and you've got a good DLE process, you can generally apply it quite widely. That doesn't mean your plant is the same. There's still some tweaks to do. But it's why that piloting and demo thing is so important, right? That's when you establish your reagent usage, you work out your cost of pre-treatment, and you pile all that into your PEA, right? So they're not all the same. Anybody who says their technology works everywhere, you should look at them sideways until you've actually worked. And shipping a brine 50,000 miles and testing it isn't that smart either, right? These brines change over time with transit, oxidation states change. So you have to do the work, you have to do the testing, you have to scale up steadily to make sure that you are going to get it right.
Well, now that I've loosened you up, what's the 2030 DLE contribution to lithium supply?
Look, I think the answer is where it fits on the cost curve, and you take the current situation where the cost curve is disconnected from pricing, so that means every project wins, theoretically, but it's still a contest, right? It's a contest for capital. So you've got to prove your DLE project is more attractive than a hard rock project, right, to get the same capital. So I think what we do see in the DLE space is that these brines are everywhere. The projects are compelling environmentally in terms of even just at a social level, just the idea of less disruption to the surface. So I think DLE can play a very big role. I think DLE by 2030 should be at 1 million tons, but that needs a kind of half dozen leaders in the space to execute across several projects. So I guess the question is, if you look at the guys at various stages of development, how many of those guys are going to emerge and build big piles of stainless steel, right? That's the question.
So are you saying there's 1 million tons that would be amenable to DLE, or you're saying that there could be 1 million tons of DLE production?
Production. So if the sector goes like hell and the promising guys scale as we think they can, like take the standards, take the ESMs and so on, the sector 2030, maybe a little later, 2032, feasibly get to 800,000 or 1 million tons.
Last DLE question. Is the first commercial success in Canada or in the United States?
So the United States is 50 different countries, right? Which makes life difficult, right? And I think everybody's waking up to the opportunity in Canada. I think that's starting to look very compelling.